G'day everyone, it's Bo from Growthwise. In this video today, I'm going to be talking about robotic process automation. On my screen at the moment, you'll be able to see a bunch of logos. So you'll see Docker, Python, Pydoll, and Xero. I'm going to be talking through what each one of them does in this context, so let's get stuck in. In this video, I'm also going to talk through the reasons why we're doing certain things, because I know from the feedback that some of you have sent me that you really want to know the reasons why we make particular decisions, so thanks for sending that through. Hopefully this video will be a better attempt at that. So one of the reasons why we use Docker, which is what you can see on the screen at the moment, is it allows us to set up environments that we can interact with quite easily. And once we have those environments set up, it means that we can actually port them to other computers and then rerun what we've already got set up. So it's just quite a good system for doing that. Now, if I also minimize this, just to give you an idea, Docker will run in the background. So if I was to open up Chrome or a folder or anything on this computer, I can continue to do that and I won't interrupt what's happening within Docker, which is really nice. For a quick example of one of the advantages that I was talking about, at the moment, what you can see on my screen is we're connected into the Docker container via a VNC connector. We're logged into Xero in the Xero demo organization. We can still interact with the browser if we like, but it's running inside of that Docker container. So if I actually just click down here into Chrome, I've got full access to my own Chrome instance still. I can do whatever I need to in here, and the Docker instance in the background can sit and do whatever it needs to do. You'll see why that's important a little bit later. Moving along now, let's briefly talk about Pydoll. So Pydoll is the Python package that we will be utilizing to actually do our web browser automations. The advantage that we have with using Pydoll is it's Chrome Developer Protocol based, which means that you don't have a special web driver to do your actual web browser automations like you do with things like Playwright or Selenium. You just need Pydoll, and then you have your Chrome browser, and Pydoll will actually connect directly into that Chrome browser to control everything, and you'll see that shortly. Now that's all out of the way, let's take a look at a quick demo. Before we get stuck into that though, one thing that I'm just going to show you, we have a downloads folder that's mapped from our local computer into our Docker container. So why this is important is it means that as Docker's doing its workflow, the files that are generated will actually end up on our local machine, which can be quite useful. So let's now jump back into the VNC window. So you can see we can interact with the browser if we want. So this is, I'm actually using a mouse currently to do that. But let's jump into Visual Studio Code and we'll run the script that we've set up earlier. Jump back into VNC and hands off, not actually controlling it. So on the payroll settings page, we're extracting a bunch of data and you'll see why shortly. At the moment, we've gone to the profit and loss page, and on this profit and loss page, we're going to set a date range, click on update, and then we're just going to export it to PDF. So it's not super flash anything that's going on here. We're just doing simple tasks, basically setting a date, updating it, exporting to PDF. Now you'll notice we've downloaded that file. And if we look in the folder here, now that file's already there. So it's been mapped back to our local machine. So let's jump back into this. The other thing that I mentioned before, if I wanted to, I can close this out. I can just let it run in the background. I don't need to interact with it at all. We can just do it sync. So I'm only doing it so we can actually talk through what it's actually going through. So we've now done the payroll activity summary. The next thing that we should go on to is the balance sheet. So we're on the balance sheet now. We'll do the same thing, set the date range, click on update, export it to PDF. Now earlier you would have heard me mention that we extracted some data off the payroll settings page. The next report that we'll land on is actually the account transactions report, and you'll see the logic of why that was important. So based on those settings that we had earlier, what we're going to do is select the accounts based on the settings that we had earlier. So we're not just pointing and clicking now, right? We've actually got some data out of Xero that we're feeding back into Xero to then generate a report based on something we found somewhere else. So you can see that we've set all of those control accounts based on the payroll settings page we have now, set the date range, clicked on update, and then we're just going to go to export to PDF. So again, it'll take a little bit of time for that export function to occur. There you go. If we jump back into this, everything's here and it's all ready to go. So just as an example, you can see all the pages are already closed. What I'll do, I'll jump back into VS Code. We'll close this out. We're going to rerun it again. This time we're not going to look at it. We're just going to close this. And what we should see is in this folder shortly, if we look at Visual Studio Code, this is important too. We do have logs that will actually explain what's going along as it's occurring. So again, we're not logged in. We're not controlling the browser, but we've got a log of everything that's happening. So if I minimize this now, shortly we should actually see another profit and loss report jump into this folder. There you go. So this is just a demonstration to show that this is why we're using Docker, right? We don't need to be connected into that browser to do anything. We're connected directly in. We can just do whatever we need to do on this computer whilst that workflow runs in the background. Okay, last of all, I just want to quickly talk through some of the code decisions that we've made. So on the left is just the folder structure. If you're used to using VS Code, this won't be new to you. That's where all of your code and files and everything lives. But let's just talk through some of the things that we've got going on here. So one is an organizations file. So this allows us to specify multiple different organizations if we want to process more than one. So in this video, obviously we just used the demo company. We didn't use anything else, but we can add additional organizations by specifying them in this file. So we can extend what we're already doing. Now, when we extract the data from the payroll settings page, we're also storing that here. So this is all generated by that actual web browser process. So it'll go to that page, it'll generate this file because, as you would have seen, this is what we use when we go to the account transactions page. This is what it uses to know what to search for and what checkboxes and things to click. Outside of that, real important thing in accounting apparently is actual dates. So what's the periods that we're reporting on? What's our start date and what's our end date? So if we wanted to change that, we've got this file set up called processing dates. You would have noticed when we did the demo earlier, it did it all for November. We can adjust that simply by changing these two dates. If we want to do a longer period, we can set it to a longer period, shorter, whatever we want, we can just adjust it via here. The last thing that we have as a settings file is the reports file. So this actually allows us to specify each of the different reports that we want to interact with inside of Xero. Now, this is important because it means for extendability, again, when we're talking back to the thought process of why we do things a certain way, what if I want more than these reports? I don't want to have to fully rewrite everything in terms of our code base and what we've got going on. This makes it more modular. So if I go, you know what, there's another report that I want out of Xero, we can add it into this file, and then with some small manipulations to the rest of the code, we can make everything work. In addition to having each of the reports specified, what we also have is Python scripts for each report. So there's really simple nuances between them. Some of the code can be reused, but sometimes it can't. So for example, on a balance sheet, you don't have a start and an end date. You only have an end date. So having these separated Python files means that if a report changes in Xero, again, rather than having to change a whole heap of things, we can just change the one particular report that it actually relates to be able to actually make sure that this continues to work into the future. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hopefully this video has been useful for you or informative. If it has been, we'd really love if you jumped on over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@growthwise, and go and hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on all the videos, watch some other things and just interact. Would be really good. Hope everyone has a great Christmas and hope everyone has a great new year. Cheers.